What if I told you that American personnel were just injured in an Iranian ballistic missile attack, and at the exact same time, Donald Trump is deciding whether to extend a fragile ceasefire that could determine whether the Middle East explodes into an even bigger war? Because tonight, the situation is hanging by a thread. Missiles are still flying, US drones are being damaged, Iran is making demands, and Washington is warning that if negotiations fail, the bombs could start falling again. This is the latest chapter in one of the most dangerous confrontations of 2026, and the next 48 hours could change everything. Before we begin, subscribe to Cobalt for more breaking military and geopolitical coverage. The biggest development came from Kuwait. According to multiple reports, an Iranian ballistic missile targeted Ali al-Salem Air Base, a key military installation used by American forces. Several Americans reportedly suffered minor injuries during the attack. The strike also seriously damaged 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones worth tens of millions of dollars. And that's important for one reason. This wasn't just another exchange of threats. Americans were hurt. The missile was reportedly intercepted, but debris and impacts still caused damage on the ground. For weeks, both sides have been trying to avoid crossing certain red lines. But once American personnel start getting injured, the pressure on Washington immediately changes, because every administration faces the same question. How long can you negotiate while your forces are being attacked? Now comes the difficult part. President Donald Trump is reportedly reviewing a proposal that would extend the current ceasefire with Iran by another 60 days. On paper, that sounds simple, but it isn't. Iran wants sanctions relief. Iran wants frozen assets released. Iran wants restrictions eased, and Tehran also wants guarantees that another major attack isn't coming. Washington, meanwhile, wants something else, a permanent end to Iran's nuclear ambitions, an end to threats against American forces, and freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. The problem? Neither side fully trusts the other, and that's what makes these talks so dangerous. One missile, one drone strike, one misunderstanding, and the ceasefire could disappear overnight. To understand why everyone is suddenly talking about peace, you need to look at a narrow stretch of water, the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil passes through this corridor. When fighting intensified earlier this year, shipping traffic was disrupted. Oil prices jumped, global markets panicked. Governments across Europe and Asia started worrying about energy supplies. That changed the equation. Suddenly, this wasn't just a regional war. It became a global economic crisis. And that's one reason negotiators have been working non-stop to keep the ceasefire alive. Because if Hormuz closes again, the economic shock could be felt everywhere. While diplomats talk, the Pentagon is sending a very different message. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the United States remains fully capable of restarting military operations if negotiations fail. That statement wasn't accidental. It was meant for Tehran. A reminder that while peace talks continue, American forces remain on high alert. Aircraft remain deployed. Warships remain positioned across the region. And military planners are preparing for every scenario. That's the strange reality right now. Diplomacy and military escalation are happening simultaneously. One side is discussing peace, the other side is preparing for war, and both are happening at the exact same moment. One of the biggest questions is whether Iran's military capabilities have actually been crippled. Early in the conflict, many analysts believed sustained strikes would dramatically reduce Iran's ability to fight. But newer assessments suggest something different. Reports indicate Iran still retains significant missile and drone capabilities despite months of pressure, and that's exactly why these negotiations are so complicated. If Iran still has the ability to threaten shipping routes, launch missiles, and strike regional targets, then Tehran still has leverage. And leverage changes negotiations. Instead of dictating terms from a position of total dominance, Washington now finds itself bargaining with an opponent that can still create major problems. That's a reality many policymakers didn't expect earlier this year. So, where does this go from here? Right now, there are two possible futures. Future number 1, the ceasefire survives. Negotiators reach a temporary agreement. Shipping traffic stabilizes, oil markets calm down, and both sides buy time. Future number 2, talks collapse. Missile attacks continue. American casualties increase, and the United States responds with new military strikes. At that point, the entire region could find itself back on the edge of a much larger conflict. The problem is that nobody knows which future we're heading toward. Not Washington, not Tehran, not America's allies, and maybe not even the negotiators sitting in those rooms tonight. One thing is clear. The Middle East is still one miscalculation away from another major escalation. Americans have now reportedly been injured. Iran is still firing missiles. The Pentagon is warning it can restart operations at any moment. And Donald Trump is facing one of the biggest decisions of his presidency. Will the ceasefire hold, or is this just the pause before another round of war? We'll be watching every development. Subscribe to Cobalt for more breaking military, geopolitical, and space warfare coverage. And let us know in the comments. Do you think the ceasefire survives, or are we heading toward another escalation?